Some of you guys are probably aware already that I've been a supporter of Organic Consumers Association for a long time. I was involved in with Organic Gardening and Farming magazine when J.I. Rodale first was editing it. He started it, I think. And I was a student of Alan Chadwick when I was a university student in the 1960s. Been involved in organic agriculture since at least 1964 or 5, something like that. Ran an organic farm for a while. Was looking at climate issues in the 1960s when we really thought there was going to be an ice age coming before it should, due to a complex series of calculations about the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. I was working with a guy named what was it? Hamill, I think. He wrote a book called Survival of Civilization. I talked to both of the authors, and we were trying to figure out how to save the world from a premature ice age. This was in the 60s, before there was any public discussion of climate change, global warming, things like that. So I'm pretty involved in organic agriculture and what could be called the food movement. I've been experimenting as a holistic health scientist since 1965 when I was in the university, and I live that research now using food and organic food and fasting and raw food and juices and exercise and sunlight, you know, grounding and sleep and all the rest of it, to try to reverse aging, and I have actually found ways that work to do that. I'm living that. Actually, I've transformed my own body completely and helped other people with it. I'm about as involved in the organic and holistic health movement as you can get. I don't even eat anything unless it's part of my experimenting. So I'm really involved. But lately I wanted to talk to you today for a couple minutes because there's this new movement called the Sunrise Movement, I think. I just heard about it for the first time today. I'm on the OCA list of, I got an invitation to participate in this meeting they're having on the 5th. And they want all the food movement type people, the organic people, to get behind what's called the Green New Deal. Now, I want to try to explain this in a way that it gets conveyed correctly. Too much of the time now, when we don't really understand in depth some of these issues, we're just all for something or all against it. There's a politician that we hate or we love, and you know, I'd like to see us get back some actual in-depth understanding of things that are going on. Let me tell you an example. If you look at GMOs for an example, that genetically altered, genetically modified organisms, seeds, but also plants and animals and trees, and the idea from the biotech companies is genetically modify all life forms. That way they can have patents on them. It's going to be fantastic because they can all be income sources. At the level of the scientists who are working on that, they're just wanting the money and this monopoly that's going to give them control over all life forms in the world. But at the upper levels, it's not about money. It's part of a much bigger, deeper agenda. I spent about, you know, I'm a experimental researcher in holistic health, but in the last 20 years, I also did an in-depth investigation of the global power structure that's been in charge of the world and America for a long time, from behind the scenes, not at the elected official level, but way higher up. And most of the officials below them are motivated by just money and power and prestige and being part of the club, and a little bit higher than that, they know that they're going to be part of the global elite when they succeed in reducing the population so that there's like, you know, 5% of the current population left, and they're going to have the world as their playground and on. It's really bizarre, but they're actually told that and they believe it. But at the higher levels, it's nothing about money at all. It's not about money. That's the lower levels. The higher levels, it's much darker, and most normal people wouldn't even be able to grasp it. We can talk about it at some point if you want to, but it's very, very coordinated, and the movement towards GMOs, toxic agriculture, drug medicine, microwave, Internet of Things, microwave radiation I meant to say, Internet of Things, the 5G system, the existing microwave cell towers, next rad stations, all this stuff, geoengineering, the banking cartels that are subjecting the world to poverty and stress and austerity, and fake organizations that people think are great, like the United Nations and World Trade and World Health Organizations. They're all connected. This is not some kind of weird conspiracy theory. It comes out of 20 years of serious investigation on my part, and there are other people who have done the same sort of thing. If you want solutions, you can't have tunnel vision. You can't just think, oh, it's a plan that wants to have organic agriculture and solar and wind and retrofit the buildings to be energy efficient, all this stuff. If you only look at part of the picture, you're going to get a different result than you think, and it might be a really bad one. So even though it's more work, you don't just get on one side or the other and say, yeah, all the people who disagree with me are stupid and evil and everything, and our side is the right. That's okay for a high school football game, not something where the fate of the whole biosphere is at stake, as it is now. So I'm really strong on the idea that organic agriculture and regenerative agriculture are the baseline minimal acceptable standard for all food production. No question. GMOs should be outlawed all over the planet, not by a world government, but by every individual country's government, because I'm trying to get closer to the phone because it's a little windy and I want you to hear what I'm saying. GMOs should be banned. They're obviously, the biotech companies are criminally negligent at best, and more likely they're complicit in a higher agenda, which is to destroy life on this planet as it normally should be. So those things have to be changed. Chemical agriculture has to be phased out. Those companies can make money in organic and regenerative agriculture. I'm not against making money at all. It's a good thing. But you don't make money by destroying the world. That's not okay. That's not part of free market capitalism. And I am absolutely a supporter of free market capitalism. Not because I care about the name or a label or left or right or any of that garbage. Those are distractions. Freedom is a core principle that was involved in the founding documents of America, and what made America a really great idea that needs to be lived up to. It wasn't ever perfectly implemented, and what we ended up developing is collusion between corrupt government agencies and global corporations, also known as corporatism. Mussolini called it that. It really is the definition of fascism, and it's a collusion between corrupt government and corrupt industry. It has nothing to do with capitalism, free market capitalism. People who try to portray it that way they're either not educated or they're intentionally misleading you. Say capitalism is the problem. No, it isn't. Free market capitalism is not seen anywhere in the world that I'm aware of right now. And what it means is that you're free to do your own industry, creativity, your own contribution to society, get paid for it and keep the money. This idea of the progressive taxation is a plank in the Communist Manifesto, which you can read for yourself. Marx and Engels wrote it in a very small book that doesn't take long to read. There's a reason that it was great that America was based on freedom and that government existed only to protect the country's borders so that there couldn't be invasion. Immigration could be controlled, so you don't get criminals and gang members and drug dealers and people who hate the country coming in. You get people who will come in and contribute and love the country from anywhere in the world. So the government is there to protect the borders and to protect the rights of the individuals who are legally in the country. And those rights were understood as coming from God. You're born with them, or if you don't believe in God, they come in with nature. They can't ever be taken away. No government can say this is a privilege from government and therefore we can take it away. That's not what's happening in America or any country in the world where they eventually go back to freedom. Very important. So when you look at a proposal like the Green New Deal, it says some things that are good about agriculture, not good enough, because all agriculture needs to transition to organic. And energy technologies, instead of, you know, coal and oil are not in short supply. That's false. But they really make a dirty mess when they're the source of electric energy or other kinds of energy. Nuclear power should never be done because it's a disaster waiting to happen. They knew that in the beginning. They didn't need to see Fukushima or Chernobyl or anything like that. It was obvious. Any high school kid could have calculated that in the first few minutes of understanding how it worked. So those power technologies have to be replaced by real ones. But solar and wind aren't that efficient either. The real ones that government is currently sitting on, and industry at levels above government colluding with it, are much, much more efficient than solar and wind, which still rely on dirty batteries and things like that. The real energy sources are totally clean. They cost nothing. They don't need fuel input. They exist now. They're already perfected. They don't need more research to figure out what they are. They need to come out of hiding. And I know that the people who are holding them are too terrified to say, because they'll be killed, which is the real energy policy of America and most of the world. Same thing with real health information. It's not just take vitamin C. The real health information is what's been taught for thousands of years by the teachers who knew. And it eliminates most of aging. It eliminates degenerative disease. It reverses those things. It produces maximum immunity to infectious disease without toxic chemicals that they call medicine, you know, or injections that are full of the most horrible ingredients that you can imagine. And even though you're not supposed to know about it, they kill and maim kids worldwide, and they've been doing it since Jenner in 1799. It's not just the adjuvants, it's the whole concept. It's malicious fraud. So I know about this stuff, okay? But you don't do it by giving all the power to government, make government bigger, and make believe that's going to make some kind of utopia or wonderful situation or New Deal for the people, because it won't. That's the basic premise of socialism and communism. And it's been tried all over the world. It never works. Well, it does work because it produces a great situation for the rulers, who become the super rich elite controlling everybody else for utopia, and everybody else who's in utopia is in real bad shape. That's exactly where we're going. And if you really want the green, real New Deal, and you care about climate disruption, don't call it climate change. Climate change is always a fact. It's not anything bad. Climate disruption, where it gets severe and unstable and unnatural, and you've got all these new wind patterns that never existed before, and real hot and real cold at the same time in different places. That's a real concern, and that is a threat to the planet. But it's mostly being caused by geoengineering. Just go to geoengineeringwatch.org or globalskywatch.com, and you'll see lots of information. There's no question, no politician on either side of the so-called aisle in Congress or in state legislatures will deal with it, with a couple of small exceptions, but not enough to get it stopped. This is something that the president should use the Air Force for. Overnight, escort those planes out of the sky, land them on the ground, arrest the pilots, find out who's behind it, and stop it, like right now. If you don't care about that, you do not care about climate change. Okay, you're a hypocrite, because that's the biggest cause that could be stopped overnight that is on the planet. And I'm talking to my friends in OCA, Ronnie and everybody else there. If you care about climate change, like you say you do, bring out the truth about geoengineering. It is destroying the natural climate on the planet. It's the #1 cause. It's making a big mess. There's these new wind patterns like polar vortices and things, and brand new clouds that have never been seen before. Terrible droughts that I've watched the planes cause on radar over months and months, causing the California drought on purpose, causing the big fires in California by dumping explosive dust, metal dust, on the forest for years and then activating it with directed energy weapons, which we have video evidence for. And those fires are not normal. This is the extreme of climate change, and what they're trying to do is cause that artificially, get everybody terrified of climate change, or global warming or global cooling, which both of those are covered by climate change, and get so scared that they want to give up all their rights, raise their taxes to a ridiculous level to take away the incentive for any good business to go on, even earth-friendly business, and give up your rights in sovereign countries, have open borders, which is not a partisan issue. It's just really obvious. If you won't protect your borders, you don't have a country. Oh, that's why it's important. You can let in any good immigrants that you want who are willing to love the country and contribute to it, but not all kinds of violent criminals, and then let them go when they get convicted of crimes by having a sanctuary city to prove you're not racist. This is really stupid, you guys. It's not partisan. Drop the labels. Forget conservative, liberal, progressive, and everything else. Just look for what's true. Okay, so when you look at the party line thinking, the socialists and the Democrats are normally better at understanding the environmental issues that are real, although they don't understand their implications. And the people who think they're conservative are usually really bad at understanding the environmental issues. So sometimes they're better on things like border security, although a lot of them can't even understand that. You got to throw away the labels. You know, organic agriculture, or better than organic, is obvious. You don't have to be a Democrat to understand it. That's the bare minimum for normal agriculture if you don't want to kill the planet's biosphere. Obvious. Controlling the border is obvious. You don't have to be a Republican to understand it. It's like you hardly need to be able to think at all. We got to throw away these party loyalties and this party line thinking, because the biosphere is hanging by a thread. And when you propose something like a Green New Deal that is supposed to be good for agriculture and get away from the poison, which should all be phased out. The chemical fertilizer needs to get phased out. It's the main cause of the apparent need of pesticides, obviously, okay? But you do not do it by giving this massive more power to the government and raising taxes to phenomenal levels, which is really bad for everybody. It's not the evil rich people who are going to pay it. They're going to be above that level, and they're not going to pay anything. They are laughing at us for falling for that idiocy that we're just going to tax the evil rich people. That's like, if we're not willing to do the work to think it through, that's what always people fall for, heading towards socialism, and in the end, disaster. If you want to get prosperity and well-being for all the people in the country, get rid of the central bank. You can't have tunnel vision. You can't understand only organic agriculture and do anything with that if you don't understand economics. And these people like Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders and the others, they either don't understand economics or they do and they're malicious, because they're fooling people, especially young people, like in the Sunrise Movement, to think that socialism is good. It's horrible, and it has nothing to do with left or right. It leads to tyranny and starvation. And why prove it again? You know, be smart, understand history, look around the world, and understand why free market economics from a capitalist system where they don't have toxic companies making special deals with government, and you just get to have normal ways of making a living and keep the money you make with minimal to no taxes. That way has incredible potential. And right now, if you have a central bank controlling each country, including America and most of the others, which is the reason Obama had to destroy Libya, because they were getting away from the central bank, but that's another story. And again, it is not partisan. Bush was a war criminal, Obama was a war criminal, Clinton was a war criminal. It's not partisan. So we have to throw that away, grow up, start thinking. It's not good enough to understand that we need organic agriculture. You have to understand economics and some other things too. They gotta go together. The world is like hanging by a thread, and if we're narrow-minded and we just rah, cheering for something because it's organic, it's not gonna work. The central bank is set up as a above-the-law, supranational corporation, mostly foreign-owned, and it is carefully devaluing the money that you hold in your hand. You're not going to fix it with a minimum wage. I'm talking to those few who are willing to do some thinking on this. They keep devaluing the money. The minimum wage is not going to help you. You've got to stop devaluing the money and bring it back and stabilize it. And the Federal Reserve is nothing but a leech. It's a criminal organization. The leaders of it need to be indicted for crimes against humanity and probably treason. And the Treasury, not the so-called Federal Reserve, which is not federal, is supposed to control the money, and it's all supposed to be based on gold and silver. And if it is, it can't be inflated, which means devalued. I know it's hard to understand this stuff from scratch, and there's a tendency to say, oh, that's crazy because we're organic and we don't care about economics, that's somebody else's department. No, this department thing is what's killing us. You've got to stop the specialized thinking, understand how the whole picture fits together, understand geoengineering, how they're spraying toxic metals that are ruining the climate. That has to be stopped immediately. Other things like chemical agriculture, you have to understand, like you guys probably do, that it's not as good as organic, and the standards of organic have to be raised, not maintained where they are. We're just talking with Alexis Baden-Meyer, a great conversation, and she's trying to keep the standards good in Congress, but you've got all these criminals who are working for other interests trying to what do you call it? Water down, I don't know the word I was looking for. Water down the standards of what organic means. And organic is coming from the National Organic Program, which belongs to USDA. They're the biggest supporter of GMOs and chemical poisons, one of the biggest ones on the planet. They don't care whether organic stays real. The whole system has to be changed, but not by massive taxes, socialist programs which end up in total disaster. And there are reasons for that. Not just because you memorize socialism bad, free market capitalism good. That happens to be true, but you don't know that by memorizing it and taking one side or the other. The time for thoughtlessness like that is over if we want to save the biosphere. You got to break out of your thinking. Everybody, including conservative Republicans, and everybody has to understand the necessity for organic and for true clean energy, not solar and wind, but way better than that. And you don't just borrow the money, giving the Federal Reserve more power to control the country, to retrofit every building in America. This is not intelligent, Alexandria, and you got to stop, just screaming that this is the only way to go. It's better to think and to realize, no, we don't know everything. It's okay to be open and learn what you don't know. So the organic idea is not only good, it's essential, but it's got to be combined with a real understanding of economics. And if you leave it in the hands of these people in Congress and make a new committee that the Democrats control, the Democratic Party has become totally criminal. They're not being good, you guys. It's not smart to think that they're the good guys. Most of the Republicans are also terrible. And this is a long story, but you got to break these, tunnel vision sets and these ways of thinking and just say, look, whatever's true, I want to know. This paradigm of fighting with each other about everything is really stupid. We should not be falling for that. We're all humans, right? We're wearing these costumes, bodies, they have different colors and styles and genders and ages and classes and all this stuff. It doesn't matter. We're underneath all these costumes. If you take them off, we're spirit. Whatever you call it, doesn't matter. It's not physical. And we are not just one family, which we are, by the way. We should not be fighting each other. We're one being, one spirit in all these different identities and costumes. And it's time that that got understood. No more tunnel vision where we understand organic, but we have no idea about economics. Just give everything free for everybody. Minimum wage is going to make everybody, you know, have enough money. That's really dumb. It is not true. You have to stabilize the value of the money, or it doesn't matter. You can set a minimum wage at $1 million a year. You think everybody's going to be rich? If you think that, you don't understand anything about how money and what it represents operates, and you need to do that. This is not to criticize anybody. There's no ego in this. It doesn't matter if you learn it, part of it from me or from anybody else. It's not an ego thing at all. But you must learn it, because if you jump into this sunrise movement and just support the Green New Deal because it's got green in it, right? And it's organic, and it says everybody gets everything, they get minimum wage so that nobody will be stressed for money. It won't work. There are reasons it won't work. It's not because one side or the other is good. It's because the mathematics of it don't work. There's a scam going on, and the value of the money is being intentionally removed little by little. About 99% of the purchasing value of a dollar has been lost since 1913, when a corrupt Congress gave control over the American economy to a private group of bankers. And we got the result. That's why everybody is just struggling to survive, or they're on welfare or food stamps, and people want more and more benefits, and they just missed the whole point. Okay, so what I'm saying is, before you jump into this new sunrise movement and the Green New Deal and all this stuff, and I love Organic Consumers Association, but they need to understand this, and they don't so far. I don't want to believe that they're intentionally misconstruing this. I think that it's an honest area of ignorance on their part. This is not a criticism. This is, the time for ego junk is over. This is, are we going to survive or not? You want to stop climate change? Stop geoengineering first. A little bit more carbon is not going to hurt anything. And if you look at the longer period in those graphs of carbon and climate in the earth, we've had periods that were vastly higher than now. And everything was still healthy and fine and clean. But we have never had a time, as far as I know, with geoengineering spraying toxic metal, biological weapons, and other things on our heads. And we've been too dumb to notice it and say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Of course, we're not going to have a chance if we're not more intelligent than that. So stop the adversarial thing. What we're here for is not to prove the other guy is wrong. That's not even relevant. We're here to help each other find out what's true, expand our knowledge, stop the specialized thinking, stop just thinking, oh, it's green, it's organic, it's progressive, it must be great. We have to get a little bit smarter than that, actually a lot. But the good part is, you can. You have unlimited potential of knowledge, intelligence, perception, mainly self-awareness, which is where it all starts. Become aware of yourself, who you really are, and you'll be able to understand everything on the outside, because they're connected. This gets very deep. Don't get stuck on one issue, because if you don't have the context, it's not going to work, and it's going to be really bad for everybody. So please be receptive. I wrote something like this to Organic Consumers Association, and they just ignored it. And I know they think it's crazy because it's not what they've come to identify with, but you've got to be open if you really want to save life on this planet. We don't have time to be compartmentalized in thinking. If you get a broad vision of this, then you can implement something that will not develop this massive debt to a malicious organization that will use it against you. That's exactly what the Green New Deal will do as it is now. And all these corrupt people in Congress will be happy to do it because they'll put themselves exempt from it. And they'll be controlling the utopia from above, right? While we all starve and barely survive. I don't think that's a very good plan. There's another way to do it. Get rid of the toxic corporations that are making money by producing things that will kill you. And at the same time, get rid of the geoengineering get rid of the criminal banking organization that's above the law called the Federal Reserve, but it has its counterpart in every country. You got to get rid of those completely. Get rid of them. They're not only not needed, they're ruining anybody's chances to have a good life. When you put all these things together and you change your attitude, realize everybody else is a family member and actually connected intimately with you. That's why helping somebody else is literally the same as helping yourself. Understand all these things together, and we could revolutionize life on this planet for the better. Not with a temporary illusion of massive debt controlled by the Federal Reserve. Oh, the other thing, this is ridiculously long, I'm sorry, I really apologize, but I'm talking as fast as I can. I'm hoping against all odds that you guys might actually listen to me. It doesn't matter who I am, that you might listen to what I'm saying, take it and develop it, learn about it. Understand, this is not to criticize anybody. This is because I care about life on this planet. And the Green New Deal as it is going to be a disaster. One of the ways it's going to be a disaster is government integrated single-payer health care for everyone. This is a terrible idea because the people in charge in the government agencies are part of the medical industry, which is all based around toxic chemicals that they have named medicine, that may cover up a symptom for a little while and end up making it much worse, at which point they'll say, oh, well, you also have this and this and this, but don't worry, we have toxic chemicals, medicine that you can take for that too, and it's going to be great. And then when that totally destroys your organs and they start removing them surgically, and then they end up putting you in hospice or something and drugging you to death gradually, that's not a very good health system, okay? And if you give complete control of the nation's healthcare to that system, which is exactly what would happen, they'll be injecting you with poisons that destroy the neurology of everybody's brain and are hurting and killing kids like they are now. This is not intelligent, you know. Superficial thinking is really dangerous. There are real health systems that can be brought in, but they have to be based on real health care, which is not drugs, radiation, surgery, chemotherapy, injecting poison into babies. And that's not health care, okay? That's what passes for it now, and if you object to it or criticize it, they're moving toward a place where they'll put you in jail. Wake up to this stuff. It's not good enough to just know about organic agriculture. You must have the full picture. You really can understand these things. Put it together. If you got the big picture, then yeah, get the young people, but don't just get them to cheer for your memorized program of slogans. Get them to understand. Young people are smart, you know, in spite of the government brainwashing centers they call schools that have been trying to get them where they can't think anymore. Young people are really smart, and they're a wonderful asset to the chance of healing the world. But tell them the truth, not just a limited thing to memorize and to go out real excited and say, this is going to save us all. And no, it isn't, because there's big gaps in the understanding. Please, you know, consider what I'm saying. It's not crazy. I've spent many, many decades putting this together, and you can too. It's not the property of anybody, but the world can be made beautiful and it can be healed, and wonderful things can be done here. We can create heaven on earth, literally, not in some religion or philosophy, but for real. Nature has that potential, but you must do your work. You can't just memorize some slogans and go door to door, and you have the whole country out pushing this stuff, and what they're really pushing is their own suicide. You can't understand this. So take it if you want, and really start thinking at a deeper level. Stop the arrogance, drop the ego out of the whole thing. The idea that, well, nobody else can understand because they're not even a member of our group or some stupid thing like that. It's too late for that. The biosphere's hanging by a thread in at least 20 different major ways, and they're all coordinated from a top level of rulers that are not motivated by money. It is completely different at that level. But we have the potential to heal the whole thing anyway. Just like Michael Jackson saying in his song, Heal the World. It is definitely, literally possible. not just in some imaginary fantasy world. It can be done here. Anybody wants to go into it deeper on the details, we'll share them in a private format where I can actually get into those without being banned right away. It's getting dangerous with the censorship to even talk about anything real unless you go along with the system and fall for stuff like a socialist Green New Deal, which is a really bad idea. Make it into something good. If you want to get into some details of how to use the real health information, transform your body so you can stop worrying about diseases and aging and stuff like that, and then go on to a higher level where we've got other things in play now that can turn around the whole situation on the planet. Check us out at planetaryhealingclub.com. planetaryhealingclub.com. It's live, interactive, every Saturday. No partisanship whatsoever. It's only what's real, and I share with you things that I've picked up over more than 50 years of experimental research in health and also in consciousness, and all these areas tie together. Let us share them with you if you're ready, but it takes some work. I have to warn you, it's not just, you know, observation or entertainment or something. It wouldn't be worth your time. But if you're really willing to work on yourself, which is the most important work waiting for everybody, not the organization, that's secondary. If you're out of work with trying to tell other people about these things, that's secondary. If you want to be effective on that level, do the work in yourself. That's first. Man in the mirror concept, or woman or child in the mirror. If you have an idea what I'm talking about and you're one of those rare people that's willing to start the work, planetaryhealingclub.com. And otherwise, all I'm asking you is within Organic Consumers Association, the Sunrise Movement, all these groups that are sincere and want to help the biosphere and the environment and make things organic. Listen to what I've said here. It's really, really important. I don't hear it being said in OCA at all. I see it being ignored. My communications are not answered. Please pay attention. You can send me feedback direct if you want to. Richard at lostartsradio.com, and I'd be more than happy to hear from you anytime. This is not for me or for any of us against anybody else. We're all together in it. And let's become awake, intelligent, not living a label. Okay, forget the labels, and just be interested in what's true. I hope you can hear what I'm saying. I really do. And I hope I'll hear from you and maybe see you at the Planetary Healing Club meeting if you feel like it. Okay. Sorry to go on so long, and I really appreciate you. Thanks for caring about the fate of the world. That's what it comes down to. Talk to you soon.